I tend to think you're fearless when you recognize why you should be scared of things, but do them anyway. I mean, first of all, let me say whichever superhero first came up with the idea of wearing a cape, he wasn't really onto anything good. The number of times I'm treading on that damn thing, or I throw a punch, and it ends up covering my whole head. It's really not practical. Whatever you do it completely. Don't do it half. Or said, do it more than anybody else would. All of the muscles were gone, so that was a real tough time of rebuilding all of that. But you have a deadline. You have a deadline. You have an obligation. You've said that you will commit to this part, and I just can't live with myself for not really giving it as much as I can. The art of survival is a story that never ends. It's about pursuing it rather than waiting to see what comes along. I think trying too hard to be sexy is the worst thing in the world a woman can do. It's the actors who are prepared to make fools of themselves, who are usually the ones who come to mean something to the audience. I find something fascinating about the quiet man in the background who has no desire to be the center of attention. Art is something to be proud of. Art is no compromise. As an actor, you're giving it up. You're at the mercy of so many other people. But I learned that there's a certain character that can be built from embarrassing yourself endlessly. If you can sit happy with embarrassment, there's not much else that can really get to you. I always leave that for other people to decide, because some of the things I consider to be disasters are some people's favorite movies. And that's what I like so much, is that you never know. Something intrigues somebody and means nothing to somebody else. I only sound intelligent when there's a good scriptwriter around. I've had some painful experiences in my life, but I feel like I'm trivializing them by using them for a scene in a movie. I don't want to do that. It just makes me feel kind of dirty for having done that. You have to treat yourself like a mushroom, to some degree, in order to keep on discovering things. You'll hunt me. You'll condemn me. Set the dogs on me, because that's what needs to happen. Because sometimes truth isn't good enough. Sometimes people deserve more. Sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded. There was a great complexity to my father. He was a devoted family man, but in the same breath, he simply was not suited to an anchored life. He should have been somebody who had a backpack, an old map, a bit of change in his pocket, and that was it, roaming the world. I think it's important when you're acting to be as relaxed as possible. Even if you're doing something intense, you're basically in a state of dynamic relaxation. You say something bad about Newsies and you have an awful lot of people to answer to. So yeah, a good director will be able to listen and hear everything, but have a confident vision of his own that he can say, "Oh yeah, that's a great point." And you never know. Often you can help far more than you think you can, because there's so much more that he's juggling than an actor. The only thing that I'm obsessed with is sleeping. And actually, it is more than an obsession. It is a pleasure. We're all conning ourselves, one way or another, just to get through life. It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. I never want to feel that I'm playing it safe. I seek the means to fight injustice, to turn fear against those who prey on the fearful. I have a fear of being boring. I always want to confuse people in terms of any kind of image and be unpredictable in any kind of movie I make. All I've ever ended up with in terms of achievements is the movie. Some really stupid anecdotes, a bunch of crosswords that I didn't finish, and maybe some old bicycle that I found lying around on set. I never, in any city I've ever been in, never remember the names of streets. The longest place I ever lived in was for 5 years, and I didn't know the name of the next street over. An actor should never be larger than the film he's in. The only thing I would unequivocally say is that I have never had any interest in romantic comedy. I just couldn't do it. I think I'd be terrible. Sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Sometimes people have got to have their faith rewarded. I feel like I'm pretty good, but I don't like to toot my own horn, you know. I want to let the work speak for itself and kind of move on to the next thing. And I not only inherited an aversion to the 9-to-5 routine, but the sense from my parents that being bored and boring is the worst thing that you can be. I met my grandfather just before he died, and it was the first time that I'd seen Dad with a relative of his. It was interesting to see my own father as a son, and the body language and alteration and attitude that comes with that, and it sort of changed our relationship for the better. It's very easy to leave when things go wrong, but to stick around and to basically give life to a town because of everything that it gave you generation after generation after generation after generation after generation, that to me is what defines a true American. Certainly, I have no attraction to misery. I don't intentionally go for dark. Art is something to be proud of. Art is no compromise. I have a very sissy job where I go to work and get my hair done, and people do my makeup, and they will do my makeup, and I go and say lines, and people spoil me rotten, and everyone has that kind of curiosity of how far can you go? How far can you take it? I think it's always good testing yourself. One of the places where we lived when I was growing up had this big wood out the back. And starting when I was about 8, I used to enjoy just walking alone through the wood. Late, 11 p.m., midnight, later. I do like taking stuff seriously that a lot of people look at as nonsense. I enjoy the insanity of that. And I like the commitment that is needed for that. It's got to do with putting yourself in other people's shoes and seeing how far you can come to truly understand them. I like the empathy that comes from acting. I don't personally look to my own life experiences for answers about how to play a scene.